Good evening, dear listeners. Tonight's transmission comes by decree of the Obsidian Directorate, who, after rigorous review, have authorized the release of one of our most sacred entries from the Grand Adavilios archives, a tale of ash, ambition, and blood older than kings. Join us now as we journey deep into the jungles of Urgast and uncover the first of many sins buried beneath the legend of our founder. This is Dr. Braga and the Red Curse. Entry 1. The Temple Breathes. I think we're getting close now, Doctor. 20 years. It had taken Dr. Fausto Braga 2 relentless decades to hear those words spoken aloud. 20 years of obsession, of research, exile, and ruin, all for this moment. The cost? Everything. Every coin he'd earned to fund this expedition, every reputation sacrificed in pursuit of his research, every bridge burned to gather a crew mad enough to follow him here. If all went well, the results would be worth the price he paid. This is incredible, Doctor. All your research was right. We're almost there. The eager voice of his apprentice, Viviana, pulled him from his thoughts. Bright-eyed and brimming with promise, she was a scholar on the rise, one he admired, if not for her brilliance, then for her unwavering faith in his cause. He returned her smile with a solemn nod. Yes, we are. From where they stood, the temple could be seen at the distance. It was maybe another few hours' worth of trekking through the island's dense forest, and they would reach it before dusk, which would be more than ideal. Nights on the island of Urgast were not something Braga, or any of his 12 researchers, ever wanted to face. There were reasons this island had never been claimed by the Elysian Republic, and Braga wasn't eager to test any of them. Still, the doctor couldn't resist but to soak in the triumph of reaching even this far. He pulled out a leather-bound journal from within his coat and began scribbling away some notes to himself. Let's not delay any further. Greatness awaits us all. Doctor. One of the crewmen stepped closer, a grizzled voice, low and cautious. A word, if you will. The captain of his expedition, Vitor Duarte, pulled the doctor from his apprentice and whispered. He gestured to Viviana to carry on with the crew while they spoke. She didn't seem pleased to go anywhere with such a gritty crew, but she complied regardless. The captain was a rugged individual, his skin more leather than most, and his hair kept short, a salted sailor if Dr. Braga had ever seen, but a man who commanded respect. Dr. Braga sighed and tucked away his journal. What is it now, Captain? One of your scholars started falling behind, hiding a cough, fevers creeping in. I've seen it before. Won't be long before he's coughing blood and breaking on brittle legs. Troubling news indeed, but Dr. Braga's response was swift and unbothered. Deal with it, but do it quietly and quickly. We're almost at the temple, and I will not have my team slowed down by the Sanzarina plague. The captain nodded and whispered to his crew the instructions that Dr. Braga had given. No doubt the researchers the doctor brought along would notice the absence soon. Most likely, Dr. Braga would have to come up with some sort of an excuse about sending a crew elsewhere to tackle a different task. It didn't matter, not when they were this close. The crew pressed on, hacking their way through trenches choked with thorns, ever at the mercy of dancing shadows and whispering trees. The jungle didn't welcome them. It watched them. The wilderness claimed this place long ago, but Dr. Braga had no doubts this was the place. Tall stone structures built precisely to the Zulteca standards. The temple was covered in the dense foliage of moss, vines, and roots, yet the intricate carvings of the ancient empire's markings decorated the walls beneath them, their worn surfaces still regaling the story of a blood-starved king, a mad conqueror, and a god of slaughter, war, and sacrifice. "Behold," Dr. Braga exclaimed with open arms, "the temple of Tsompak Nexol, the Red River King, and within the fortunes we seek." The crew gathered at the edge of the temple to take in the sight with both awe and fear in their minds. Though nature thrived so vibrantly in these long abandoned halls, they seemed to do so because the ground here was fertilized with the blood of sacrificed tributes. Even now, the cobblestone that led to the temple and the stairs that led to its entrance were stained rusted red with dried, aged blood. There was an eerie beauty to this place, so lushly covered with plants of vibrant colors, but built on the ground of so many dead. It was like the petals of a Carcavera flytrap, an exotic, beautiful plant that drew its prey only to swallow them whole, slowly. The fascinated admiration of the temple was cut short by the captain, the only one who seemed concerned with safety over revelry. "All right, everyone can pick up their jaws from the floor now and clean up your drooling. Nightfall will be upon us soon, and we still need to make it to the temple. We'll make camp inside, keep your lights dim and your senses sharp, lads. We're not safe out here." Crude as the captain might be, he was still right. The crew followed after, as well as the doctor's research team. Dr. Braga only stayed for a moment longer to soak in the sight before continuing. Even if they don't make it out of the jungle alive, they still found it. For him, that was already a leap in the right direction after everything that's happened. The expedition managed to get to the temple just before sunset. The crew made it a point to seal the temple's door behind them, already hearing howls and noises coming from creatures of the night, no doubt on the hunt for weary prey. It took 6 men to grind the doors to a close. Better to be shut in here than left at the mercy of those things out there. Once the doors were sealed, the crew and researchers started using a handful of lanterns to illuminate the temple, 1 lantern per every 3 people. While the outside of the temple was overtaken by creeping vegetation, weaving itself over the temple's lifeless husk, in here it was mostly the other way around. Moss, grass, and roots did manage to creep their way into the temple's halls, but it was mostly intact from within. The floor had canals built in from different chambers that led outside, stained with the darkened remnants of dried blood. Skulls laid on plinths by the entrances of those chambers, while the rest of their bodies lied atop altars within, a truly macabre display. "This must be the temple's sacrificial chamber." One of the researchers spoke out while examining the center of the chamber. "There's so many altars here." Dr. Braga examined the entrance of one of these chambers while writing in his journal. The Red River King didn't get that name because he was a kind and benevolent ruler. Don't forget, we are in the hall of a conqueror, a tyrant, one notoriously known for his obsession with Kai Kohuru, the god of slaughter, war, and carnage. The captain's crew began setting up a small camp in the other end of the temple's chamber, while the researchers took notes and examined the chambers, altars, and glyphs on the walls, floor, and tablets. It seemed this was the main hall of the temple, with only a few other passages leading to different parts of it, and those seemed to head underground, meaning this temple was most likely bigger than it looked. Dr. Braga's attention was more to the spaces between the entrances of the chambers of the sacrificed. Mummified Tsulteca warriors were a common sight in ruins like these. Here it was no different. Between each of these doorways there were two pillars, one on each side. Each one was carved open in the form of sarcophagi, and within most, the mummies of the soldiers that guarded these halls still stood, ever vigilant even unto death. He looked closely at one of them, arms crossed, holding a weapon in each hand. The features of their bodies were incredibly well preserved, their smooth, scale-patch skins still bearing the faint shimmer of river minerals beneath layers of dried mud and ceremonial wrappings. Even the webbing on their elongated fingers and hair-like fins were still intact, stretched taut like aged parchment. Frilled gills, now shriveled and darkened with time, traced the sides of their necks, and their sunken eyes, once accustomed to the murky depths of winding rivers, gleamed faintly beneath the lantern light. He stood up to the mummy to get a closer look, as he felt that he almost saw the mummy's gills moving ever so slightly. His attention was drawn away by his apprentice, who called to him from across the room. "Yes, Viviana," he asked as he approached her. "What have you found?" Viviana raised her lantern to show a dark crimson tablet made of vermilion, as tall as they were on the end of the hall. It was carved with intricate symbols that followed a pattern. It was Tsulteca writing on the obsidian-like tablet. "I found this. It seems to be a calendar of some sorts, but these aren't the marks of the Tsulteca days or months. It seems to be a sort of ritual tracker." Dr. Braga examined the writings on the tablet. "I see. It would seem they would use this tablet to track the cycles of when their next sacrifices would be." "Yes, but there's something I noticed that caught my attention," Viviana interjected as she moved the lantern to focus on the lower marks. "The Tsulteca were bloodthirsty killers, but they were also incredibly organized. Rituals and ceremonies like these weren't exactly something they would perform without meticulous planning. Usually they would organize these ceremonies following lunar cycles or astronomic patterns and mark tablets like this through the whole year. But this tablet is missing more than a quarter of the year." Dr. Braga looked down the tablet, and she was right. The markings on the tablet followed a grid, and the grid was divided into sections. Like months, and the symbols represented days, maybe names as well, except that, towards the bottom of the tablet, the grid was still laid out, but the symbols stopped at around 3/4 of the tablet. "An interesting observation, Viviana. Well done. However, the Tsulteca did disappear around the time marked on this stone, which could easily explain why the tablet is empty." "I'm aware, Doctor," Viviana continued, "but our research shows that the Tsulteca were known for their commitment to their rituals. Calendars like these would be filled with ceremonies for the whole year. They didn't mark things like this after they were done. They would mark them before." You're right. But if what you're saying is right, then that would mean..." Viviana finished his thought for him. "The Tsulteca must have known about what would happen to them before it did." The celebration of their discovery was cut short when someone dropped something across the room. One of the captain's crewmen tried to take something from one of the bodies, and it collapsed to the ground. The crewman was approached by a very upset researcher who was calling him out for his recklessness, only to be silenced by the subtle clicking of a flintlock pistol being cocked and the sight of its barrel pointed at his face. Captain Vita quickly took control of the situation and separated the two without any bloodshed. Dr. Braga couldn't help but to reflexively put himself between Viviana and the spectacle. "Viviana, from this point forward, You stay close to me. We can't trust these pirates now that they've found their prize. They're not here for the same reasons we are, and I don't want to see you get hurt." Viviana nodded. Perhaps a crew of the Scourged Legion wasn't the best call for an expedition to one of the greatest archaeological finds in recent history. Perhaps Dr. Braga kept his focus on the crew that seemed to be whispering among themselves. But they were the only ones willing to make the journey. For now, let's keep our focus on the future. Take out your journal and start writing down what you found about the... A sudden scream erupted. The doctor was cut off as someone crawled backwards across the temple's chamber, his face twisted in fear. Everybody turned to the direction of the scream and saw that one of the crewmen had been stabbed, a crusty old spear with jagged blades of vermilion coming through the crewman's chest. The researchers were struck with fear. The pirates drew their weapons, but even they couldn't help their shaking hands as they saw what happened next. The blades on the spear began pulsing red. Its dusty blade started growing, absorbing the blood of the pirate, and the wound it left turned black as it spread. His body jerked, blood spilling from his mouth, and crystallized as it did. Then the spear was drawn back out of the pirate, the coagulated blood shattering from its edges like glass, and under it the spear now looked fresh, honed, satiated. The crew followed the light to who or what was holding the spear. It was one of the mummified Zulteca warriors, no longer asleep. So, the temple is real, and within its stone heart, something stirs. Dr. Fausto Braga's dreams may have brought him to the foot of glory, but as the sun sets and the dead begin to wake, I wonder, was it worth the price of penance? We will return, dear listeners, with the second act of our tale next week, as the jungle drinks deep and the temple claims its toll. But if curiosity has its claws in you, and you must know what becomes of the good doctor, a full transcription of this playbill is available through the vaults of the Grand Adavilios Library. Seek it upon the shelves of our selected purveyors of twisted tales and haunted whispers. The scribes greatly appreciate any and all contributions. Support, share, and spread the rot. And until next, we turn the page. I'll be watching.